We had hoped to find evidence of Anglo-Saxon settlement, or even more burials, near or on top of an earlier Roman villa here. But instead, we seem to have stumbled upon a site that could keep a team of diggers going for a month.
Everything does look as though it's on this regular alignment.
Yeah.
So I think it's fairly safe to assume that's all Roman.
I mean, I think we all know that we're not going to get Anglo-Saxon stuff here unless it's by accident, don't we?
We've now only hours to get our heads around what we've uncovered in the lower field.
Roman. Roman, Roman, Roman.
But at least we've now solved one mystery in the cemetery. The mystery of the grave with the potential cross-dressing wild women with the brooches and spear.
I can't really see where their heads were, other than just from the grave goods.
Hang on, you said where their heads were?
Yes.
There's not one person in here, there's two.
We've got one set of teeth there.
Yeah.
And we've got another set over here.
Can you tell anything about these people?
Not at the moment, but...
No, but I can. I was always aware that this is going to be a slightly tricky grave because spear and brooches mean man and woman, and they shouldn't be in a single grave. So I thought we might have two graves or we might have a double grave.
And we now have the proof that we do have a male warrior buried alongside a woman.
You can see where Jackie's pointing out.
Yeah.
The button
on the top of a shield boss, so that the hand would grip under there and the board would come out here and get tipped down into the ground there.
How fantastic. This grave gives us a tantalising glimpse into how one Anglo-Saxon man and woman were last viewed by their family and friends. And yet we can only guess if this was some sort of husband and wife burial, or just an opportunity to lay two people to rest at the same time. We now have only a few hours left of day 3. But with storm clouds looming, the whole dig looks under threat of grinding to a halt. Cool, Matt, have you been upsetting the gods?
It's getting pretty bad, isn't it?
Yeah. And with as much manpower needed as possible on the top field, we have to admit defeat of a sort down in the villa field.
It's late Roman in the bottom of the ditch, late Roman in the middle, late Roman at the top, late Roman on top of the cobbles there.
We can't find any Anglo-Saxons, but boy, have we uncovered a fantastic Roman site.
I think this is one of the most beautiful trenches I've done in my life, to be honest. We know that from the geophysics and having dug this, there are some major Roman features here, and these would have been visible to the Anglo-Saxons for hundreds of years. I mean,
Matt, stop waxing lyrical, will you? Let's get out the rain.
Look at...
The Roman archaeology we've uncovered down here is bigger and more complex than we could ever have expected. But any further investigation will have to wait for another day.
You need a medal.
Because we've got our hands full with the cemetery.
Clean the whole thing up, chop some square up the sections, and have another go there, really hit it, make sure.
In fact, at the last count, we still need to sort out 5 burials and a funeral. Rakshar's no longer with us. She's just ashes to ashes, dust to dust. But we want to keep her memory alive, don't we? So, Sam, you've created a sort of Anglo-Saxon epitaph for her.
That's right. It's simulated in the Old English style, which would be a very important function of the poetry in a basically a society that values poetry as its central medium. And a bit like the Queen Mother's funeral, there was a great declamation of her titles and achievements. In Rakshar's case, of course, it's her supreme skills as an archaeologist, although archaeology is a modern word, so the equivalent, I reckon, in Old English is...
Digger lady.
Yes.
I love this phrase you've written after it, sharp shovel wife.
Yes, again, this is a formulaic style. And for the actual delivery, of course, our senior man here and an absolute natural for the part is, of course, our dear old Uncle Phil.
Why is he a natural?
Well, because with that natural Wiltshire accent, you've got a voice there that is closer to the authentic Old English dialect than my more posh southern accent.
I wish that stone wasn't there on the...
But before that, our orator-in-chief needs to sort out the brooch he uncovered.
Come on, baby, come on.
And that means lifting it in a block of its surrounding earth to keep it in one piece.
Oh, there we go.
There it
Got
goes,
it.
it's gone. Got it. I've got it.
And all that effort's worth it. Because back in the conservation lab, the brooch, now heavily taped to hold it together, is revealed as a fragile but gobsmacking work of art.
It's pretty impressive, eh, Phil?
It's amazing.
And it looks as if it's pretty well all survived.
Oh. This one here is only the 4th one of this type.
Get out.
Yeah.
The 4th.
To be found in Britain, but it's probably the best of the lot.
The next stage is also the most nail-biting.
I might just try and lift it.
Removing the brooch from the block of earth.
All right, I'm going to do it now. Yes.
Shot.
Once it's cleaned up, it's obvious that it's one of our best finds ever. And even more importantly, it may just offer us a rare insight into that elusive crossover period between the Roman and Anglo-Saxon ways of life.
I've had a word with our specialist here at Wessex, and he reckons they're mid-5th century, so about 450.
Really? So they're within a generation of the sort of end of the Roman period then?
Absolutely. But you see, this one was probably a bit older when it went in the ground, because around here, all the way around the edges, there's a lot of wear. So this thing was probably quite old when it went in the ground.
But nevertheless, it was probably worn by a descendant of the Romana Britons who were in that area then.
Very likely.
It's safe to say this dig will stay with us for a long time to come.
Join a thriving worldwide community of Time Team fans on Patreon.
Our new target is to reach 15,000 worldwide supporters on Patreon by the end of 2025. This will enable us to continue expanding the Time Team world with more digs and greater access than ever before.
I can just imagine Sir John Popham's grand Elizabethan house looking down the hill to the old medieval manor. The house we now think Francis renovated a couple of centuries later. And it now looks like the medieval moat was the first thing to go.
So if this then were a medieval moat, it would stretch from the footprint of the house, presumably, to about 10 feet behind us that way.
You can see the edge of it coming round there, look.
I see, OK. So it's a bigger moat. The Georgian wall was put in the middle of it and then backfilled, so the sloping bank of the moat becomes a hard stone edge.
Exactly. Now, one thing I can guarantee you, when they built this wall, the thing that they wanted to create was something that was dry, because right at the bottom, you've got a drain.
There it is. Presumably then this becomes a dry moat, ornamental feature that you walk around the outside of.
Phil thinks that the basements had windows or doors, which logically can't have been built until after the moat was drained, or they'd have flooded. So perhaps Francis Popham did more than just clad an old building after all. Perhaps he remodelled it from the bottom up. Only half a day left to find out.
That is the return there, isn't it?
It's a nice little find just come off the spoil heap. It's a small Elizabethan coin. It's been deliberately bent, and the archaeologists are speculating that it might be a love token which you gave to someone who you fancied, and if they returned it, then you knew you were in with a chance. Well, we found this presumably having been discarded, so no luck that time, I guess.
We're now walking up the main carriage drive for the 18th century mansion. Doesn't look like
Stuart and Elaine's bid to unravel the mysteries of the estate has revealed that the bulk of Francis Popham's budget went on constructing a vast lake and planting thousands of trees to create a series of impressive views of the mansion.
by the time we get here, instead of being enclosed by the trees, it's like the curtains of a theatre have opened now, and look what happens. You're going to go, wow, that's fantastic.
The second viewpoint is the angle from which the watercolour of the grand eastern facade was painted.
What you've got now is a perfect picture frame with overhanging boughs from the trees here on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side will be the other screen of trees.
The carriageway would then have swept the visitor round to see the main entrance.
would have seen the portico, and sweeping off to the other side, you would have seen acres of the family's land and their sheep and their animals. It would have been very impressive.
It would, wouldn't it? And this is really important for the archaeology, because to achieve the effect they wanted, all they have to do is rebuild the east wing and the north wing. They don't need to do anything behind, because the visitors won't see that. You could keep the medieval buildings and they could function perfectly well.
And unlike today, Georgian visitors simply didn't wander round the back, so there was no need to rebuild the service quarters and stables. We're getting towards the end of the day, and Phil's beginning to get a clearer idea of what his basement rooms looked like.
Whoa, there's the wall. Wait. There's a bit of a recess there, isn't it?
We've got a bit of wood under here. It's not a bit of leftover sill, is it? Look at that, Phil.
Oh, good Lord.
See that, running underneath those slabs? There's your wood.
Yeah.
Resting on that.
Yeah.
Which means these blocks are in situ, on top of it, in the doorway, with more stonework above it.
It gives us some indication of how much further we got to get down to get the floor that we hope to be standing on.
That's right.
The height of this doorway suggests there's at least a metre of rubble to dig through. And every bucketful is a reminder of how Francis and Dorothy Popham's dreams came to nothing, thanks to their nephew, the General.
In the end, the house is costing the General too much money, and he decides that he wants to have it pulled down.
I thought the will specified that the person who had the house couldn't let go of it, they had to look after it.
Well, what he does is he gets a master builder to come in here and survey it. And he writes up a report in damning terms, saying just what kind of horrible shape the house is in. And what he actually tells us in this report is that if we wanted to make the house livable, it's going to cost about £5,000. However, if you were going to finish it to the original design, right here he's saying it's going to cost you at least £60,000.
What's that in today's money?
It's about £4 million. It's a heck of a pile of money.
So he submits this document to the trustees?
He does submit this to the trustees on the argument that he's going to be ridding the estate of a nuisance.
The huge expense persuaded the trustees to authorise the demolition of an unfinished and dilapidated Hun Street mansion.
That's the face there.
And the best bits were sold off to Prior Park.
Well, that is nice.
The General left the portico as a relic of his uncle's grand design, while his family made the lodge their home.
Well, we got our sill, look here.
Phil's trench is now too deep to work in, but he's determined to get to the bottom of his basement room.
Oh, look at that. Does that look like you plaster to you?
It does, yes.
I mean, if I can hook that away, awkwardest form of digging I've ever done.
Yeah,
I'm sure that is a plastered surface there.
It's looking like it, isn't it?
Oh, look. Come here. Am I right in thinking that there's a line comes up through there?
Yeah.
Does that mean that's where the window's going to be then?
So it seems that there were windows looking over a dry moat running around the eastern wing, up to the mysterious corner where Jonathan thought we'd found a medieval chapel.
Well, I've been slapped round the face by the wet haddock of reality, haven't I? Because this felt like a medieval building. See what I mean? Those corner sort of seem like buttresses. But I don't mind at all, because if what I'm reading is right, is that stub there built into the corner?
Yeah, it's all part of the same thing. You can just see there's a vertical face down the bottom there, and you've got another one going along there.
That's fine. You're on the corner of that big wing that extends down to Phil's trench. And if that wall, the small one, is built into it, and it returns around this way and it's built into this corner, then we've got the same wall being built into both the wing and the moat wall at the same time. It's the same build, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. Right.
This requires a major rethink. And it's now clear that the outside wall was built at the same time as the parapet wall. The question now is when, and right at the end of the day, Jonathan's found the answer.
This room now, we're past the rubble and we're on to the details which really revealed the period it was built in. And you can see the plaster lining there, squeezed between what were once wooden uprights against the wall. Some of it was panelled on this downstairs room, stores, scullery, kitchens, that sort of area. All that's typical of the 17th century. In the smart rooms, it might be coloured with tapestry. Down here, those cheap materials are well done for the kitchen staff.
Seems to me that after 3 days, we haven't discovered a Georgian mansion at all.
150 years after this was built, the Georgians slapped a bit of lipstick on it. That's basically it.
So it's a bit of Georgian cladding?
Yeah.
If you'd like to see more episodes like this, you can make it happen.
Our new target is to reach 15,000 worldwide supporters on Patreon by the end of 2025. This will enable us to continue expanding the Time Team world. Enjoy front row seats for the greatest show on Earth and under it.
Welcome back to Sutton, Courtenay in Oxfordshire, and underneath the grass of this rather bland, featureless looking field may be one of the rarest buildings that you ever find in British archaeology, an Anglo-Saxon hall. Although, how confident are we that there's anything in the ground that justifies this enormous amount of digging?
Well, just look at the results. I mean, they speak for themselves. I mean, you can see the ring clearly. You can see the rectangular enclosure that we think may be the Saxon building, but then a lot more information, more ditches, more pits. You know, a fantastic picture.
What do we need to find in the ground to identify an Anglo-Saxon hall?
Well, obviously pottery and stuff would help, but I think that in terms of the construction thing, it's going to be built of timber. You know, it's going to have posts set in the ground to support the walls and the roof. So we would expect to find post holes, which will be, I would guess, circular brown holes where the posts have stood. Or, because there are different building techniques, we might find trenches which hold the timbers to support uprights. It's going to be quite variable, isn't it?
I mean, these results, that definitely suggests a timber slot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be important to find out whether we're dealing with a trench or individual post holes, and then what's in those holes. Is it posts, is it planks? Because all these constructional details, the date depends on those. Building styles changed over time.
Yeah. So it may be big, but our first trench has gone in over some great geophys. And to prove it's an Anglo-Saxon hall, we either need to find post holes, the remains of massive wooden uprights which supported the walls and roof, or beam slots, the remains of the alternative Anglo-Saxon building method, large planks of wood set in the ground. And as Phil gets stuck in to see if he can find either of these features, we've already made a reassuring discovery.
I'm as certain as you can be with a bit of pottery that big that that's probably early Saxon, so it could do with some bigger bits.
I think a lot of us would be amazed you could even pronounce that it's pottery.
Well, it's just a matter of eliminating what it can't be, you know what I mean? And I think you've got a bit of Saxon pottery here, Phil. There's one probable and one maybe.
Well, one piece of pot in the topsoil doesn't equal a hall, but at least it proves the Anglo-Saxons were here. And as we continue to survey the rest of the field, we've got some more geophys results, and Helen's already itching to dig another trench.
If you look at the data, there's a whole series of these black blobs
masses
scattered across the field. But then look at this really unusual anomaly.
So what size is that?
That's about 4-5 metres across.
Right, that is quite big.
I suspect it's a deep pit-like feature, full of burnt material, maybe rubbish.
Well, I'm thinking that at 4 or 5 metres in each direction, it's a pit, it's full of rubbish. It's absolutely perfect for an Anglo-Saxon building that's got a pit underneath it. And it would be fantastic if we could put a trench over that and find out.
So we're putting in our second trench over this pit to see if it's an Anglo-Saxon building. Because when Leeds dug similar pits in the 1920s, they turned out to be Anglo-Saxon buildings called Grubenhauser, or grub huts. And it was these small buildings built over cellars that produced lots of finds. The excavation of what's hopefully our Anglo-Saxon hall is well underway, but it rather begs the question, what is an Anglo-Saxon hall? Sam, what did one look like?
Imagine a great barn-like structure, high-gabled, beautifully decorated, beautifully carved, great ceremonial doors, and one of the great representations of those in modern times is Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, particularly the great feasting hall, the Meduseld in the Kingdom of Rohan for King Theoden.
OK, so it's big and echoey.
Yes, yes.
What was it for?
Well, lots of feasting, lots of drinking. Mead halls, beer halls, wine halls, these are all synonymous terms for royal halls.
Well, a number of our team, I think, are very well experienced in that kind of thing. Although at the moment they're being fairly silent. What are you doing, Matt?
Well, this is an Anglo-Saxon board game, and it kind of plays on your military tactics, a bit like chess.
So you've got board games, you've got poetry, you've got blazing fires, you've got feasting.
The blazing fire, that really comes out well in this wonderful quotation from Bede. I quote the Old English. Safir on Eilid, thine hall ye warmed, and it raina and snowa and sturma ut.
Which means?
It hardly needs translating. The fire is kindled and thine hall is warmed, and it rains and snows and storms outside. but all is peace and happy within.
It's now mid-afternoon day one, and back in the trenches, it seems that all is peace and happiness as well. Although Rakshar's still shifting mud, in Trench 1 things are looking promising, as Phil's finally got through the topsoil.
How are you getting on then, Phil?
Well, you just asked at a very crucial time. I think we're just beginning to see the features poking through.
Right.
Now look, here's the geophysics plot, here's our trench in there. Now we're sort of standing in this corner here. So we should begin to see this big curving ditch coming through there. And I reckon we've got it.
Yeah.
When you get over here, they can actually begin to see the ditch. Look, you've got gravel there.
Yeah.
And then you can see there's a line there.
Oh, yeah.
There, you go into this dark sandy stuff, and then you get back to gravel there. So I reckon our ditch, we're just on the top of it, and I reckon it's swinging round there.
So is that bone I can actually see down there?
That is bone there, yeah.
With what looks like burning material.
Absolutely. But what you haven't seen is this. Look, we've got 1, 2, 3, looks like 4.
My goodness.
Bits of pottery actually broken in the top of the ditch. Now, those bits, none of this material has been disturbed by the ploughing. That's a crucial thing about it.
So what date's that?
At the moment, I wish I hadn't dug it up yet, but it's literally, just the last thing I did, sweep it away with a digger, and there were these bits of pottery.
Right.
It's so tempting, isn't it, to think that those two things might be related.
Well, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Pottery.
Right.
Well, I'm thinking Bronze Age cremation, aren't you?
Exactly, something like that, yeah.
But the point of it is that pottery is going into that ditch once the ditch is completely filled up. So that should actually give us an early indication of how old that ditch might be.
So the crop marks and geophys seem to be delivering on the prehistoric. We might have our Bronze Age barrow. And as Matt joins the trench, we might even have a hint of our Anglo-Saxon hall.
Matt, have you seen this? What looks like an L-shaped feature here? Down here. It's coming round and going up there as well. I mean, where are we relative to the Saxon hall?
I think it should be about where you're standing, so it's kind of halfway up the trench. So
OK. Well, it's on the corner of a building, so...
So it's all looking promising. But if we really do have an Anglo-Saxon hall, what's it doing here in the middle of nowhere? Do you think this site here was the original village of Sutton?
No, I don't think this site is a village at all. In any case, villages come along a bit later. This is something else in here.
Like what?
Well, the best way to describe it, I think, is an estate centre.
What does that mean?
It's where the king's officials, the reeve and so on, would have administered the block of land round here. The king might have come here occasionally and ate the place clean. But it's a group of buildings to do with running that estate.
This is what drives me mad about Anglo-Saxon history, what we call the Dark Ages. Suddenly, this word king floats into the conversation. King of what? King of Sutton Courtenay? King of England? King of Mercia?
We know that the dynasty who lived here, they were called the Uissa. We've got this name in some very early sources, not least of which our main source, the Venerable Bede. And the Uissa are none other than the people who became what we later called the West Saxons. This is the heart of the old West Saxon kingdom.
Well, being right at the heart of the Kingdom of Wessex would explain such a big Anglo-Saxon site. And not only that, it might even suggest a royal site. Join Time Team on Patreon to access exclusive 3D models, masterclasses,